Welcome to another edition of the Bear Down Chicago podcast with your hosts, Ryan Dangle.
You picked a tie? What are we
True.
in Europe?
I'm sorry.
Soccer?
Ties happen in the NFL, man.
They're called draws, right? Yeah, no, dude. Why? Why are we doing? No, absolutely not. All right. Well, you got to keep your own record now because I don't have a tie column. I got a win-loss column.
Patrick Sheldon.
I say that because the flashlight emanating and beaming from the steaming pile of as today's game is David Montgomery. He is the flashlight in my pile of poop.
Brendan Shagru.
So our buddy Brendan, who writes for USA Today, I have always screwed up his last name. Shugri?
Shagru.
Brendan.
And Jack Wright.
Sorry, Captain Flo's over there.
I'm not Captain Clue.
So you're not excited, Jack? You're not excited about having Sarah Spain?
Yeah,
on your
wow.
show, which just
Maybe no,
really
I have talent. Is that what we found out?
Featuring Cam Ellis.
Once I was like trying to get a happy answer out of him, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, do you take out of these situations like what is it like to know that like you're this beloved that like these videos are going viral?" And he was just like, "I don't do it for that attention." And then he just took the next question, and I was just like, "Okay, like I'm gonna melt into my seat and never come back here ever again."
And Logan Bradley.
Bears, rich history defensively. Lot of good linebackers. First round draft pick, hell of a player, a Bear that is going to go down in history. Nobody's going to forget. I am bringing back Shea McClellan.
The Bear Down Chicago podcast. Yeah, we're that Bears podcast.
All right, folks, welcome into another edition of the Bear Down Chicago podcast. Now, I'm your host, Ryan Dangle. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Ryan Dangle. That's Dengel. I'm going to bring to the stage Captain Floos himself. That's Jack Wright. If you want to find Jack on Twitter, it's at Bear Down Jack. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm okay, but I considered changing that name because I think probably it's going to get hotter and hotter in here. You know me, I'll just stick with it. I'll just absolutely stick with it.
I think we are going to have a nuanced conversation, and Shells isn't going to be here tonight to yell and scream, which, I think maybe sometimes we need a little bit of Patrick Sheldon yelling in our life. But Cam Ellis, who's also going to be joining us on the stage, if you want to find Cam on Twitter, it's at Kingsley Ellis. Cam might pick up the slack and just start yelling and throwing shit. Like, I don't know. It's possible. I don't really know. Cam, how are you, dude?
I'm good. I was not prepared to flip a desk, but when the time's called for it, I can do it. I can flip it right now. Just end this podcast right where we started it. Just ruin every piece of computer I have. What you need me to do?
That's it. That's why we brought Cam Ellis onto the stage. It's just to start stuff. That's it. That's really it. Boys, so much to talk about. I think before Jack, you get to talking about some of our amazing sponsors. Let's do this really quick as a recap. We picked Bears wins and losses to start things off. And right now, I am 2-0. Brendan is 1-1. Jack, you are 2-0. Shells is 2-0. Logan is 2-0. And Cam is 1-1. So, that's pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie to you.
As far as 2 games go, yeah, we're all doing pretty good.
Our percentages are high.
Basically, come to the Bear Down Chicago podcast for all the right answers. That's where it's at.
Of course.
All right. So we're always backing Sheridan's Barbershop, as you know. It's located in historic downtown Wheaton, Illinois. It's been serving the community since 1954. With 6 barbers, Sheridan's is open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. They have appointments available to book online or by phone at your convenience. You can go to Sheridan'sBarbershop.com or you can call 630-668-0137 and book yours today. If you're not close to Wheaton, but you're closer to Naperville, you can go to Hensel's Barbershop, which is located in downtown Naperville. It's been there since 1966. At that shop, there's 6 barbers. They're open Tuesday through Saturday. You can either walk in and sign up on their little clipboard, or you can make an appointment if you'd like. Either way, if you want to do that, you can go to henselsbarber.com. whether you're going to Sheridan's or whether you're going to Hensel's. It's where traditional meets modern. Will finished up my recent cut, turned me around, said, how do you think? What do you think? Look good? I said, Will, it looks good because you did it, buddy. And that is the honest to God's truth. He is particular and he's a master craftsman. So head to Sheridan's, head to Hensel's.
When you do, tell them that the guys of the Bear Down Chicago podcast say hello and that they sent you. It would help us out, and it sure would help those guys out as well. All right, so boys, this is usually where Brendan breaks down the game in a really fun way, and we laugh. But Brendan's not here; he's in Hawaii. So yeah, we'll see about that one. Instead, boys, I was hoping we could just jump right into it. And this is a question that we threw out to a Twitter poll, and I think it is getting to the point where we're getting close-ish to the end. The first one was, how does everybody feel about the orange on orange jerseys? That was a resounding, they are an abomination. So I just want to put that out there. They're awful. They're terrible. They're really, really, really bad. But our latest one is what was the main reason, the most to blame for the Chicago Bears loss to the Houston Texans? I think there's a lot to chat about, a lot to go over here. I do think there is some nuance to this conversation instead of just, we can all say it's Shane Waldron's fault and just close this chapter. I think there's more to it than that. But just so we can throw out the poll. So at this point, it's just about 3 hours left. The offensive line is a whopping 77% of our listeners and followers. Play calling has a 9%. Caleb Williams has a 4%. And it just as a total team loss is a 9%. So Jack, why don't you give us the right answer? Who is most to blame for the Bears' loss?
Is it okay if I call back just for a minute on the orange uni poll? Because we've chatted about this quite a bit, and we know that they generally don't win in them. They don't generally win in primetime. But there was a moment, and I see if you guys can relate, and I am not being hyperbolic, but they zoomed in on a huddle where they were like, the orange jerseys were so brilliantly bright. I began to feel nauseous. I'm not even trying to make it up. Like, I started to feel like a little bit throw up-y, and I had to like swallow it back. They're terrible. And what makes them especially terrible is that everybody else has super dope lit alternatives and we just don't, and it makes me sad, and I wish we had better ones because there's so many fantastic possibilities.
Jack, you got to make your throw up noise because you're just so good at it.
Like the Packers center, and you see that one play, like the Packers center threw up on the ball, and that's why
that would have been me. That would have been me.
Why can't it? Wait. Is that The Replacements? Is that the movie that's from? Somebody help me out. Is it Replacements?
No, that happened this weekend.
No, I know that, but I'm also think it happened either in The Replacements or Any Given Sunday, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it was The Replacements. Somebody in the comments help me out on that one. Sorry, Jack, the stage is yours. Tell us who is most to blame for the Chicago Bears loss. Thanks for letting me
go off the rails for a minute. So, I guess I would say that the listeners, the voters got it right. It is in this particular game, it's the offensive line. There's no other way to look at it ultimately, because we saw what happened. We saw Caleb Williams getting destroyed like a rag doll on certain plays. I suppose you could make an argument, and I would guess we'll talk about this going forward, that by extension, that's Ryan Poles who's most to blame, because I think, unfortunately, as terrific a job as Poles has done in rebuilding this team, I mean, I think he really has. He's made maybe 3 errors. We could probably extend it. Claypool, like Nate Davis, is quickly becoming an obvious error, especially the money that was paid. And then I think just overall not addressing the offensive line. I tweeted it at some point. He made what he thought was a judicious decision to either pass in the draft or pass in free agency on a high caliber, high priced offensive lineman or two. And while he might have thought that was a good idea at the time, it very obviously wasn't a good idea. Again, I will give him full credit because I think, quite honestly, every other room is been improved at a near elite level, or at least gone from being garbage to being a quality room, I'll say. And so I don't know what it is. I'm sure you guys will have thoughts on this. I think weren't both Cunningham and Poles offensive linemen. And so I don't know if they had dreams of being wide receivers, and they like have this tendency to want to like build the skills. And then you've got Flus really building the defense. And so somehow or another, the offense, got left behind, or maybe just in this rebuild process, which has been 3 years long, they just haven't gotten to that room yet. And I think there's room for that discussion, because you can't fix it all in like one season and one off season, and it was in bad shape. It was in terrible shape, and it's going to take a while. And clearly the offensive line, it just isn't there yet. That's the understatement of the century.
Cam, what about you?
I think it was Matt Eberflus. I think isn't that where the buck stopped ultimately, when you are that much worse than the other teams, like that obviously worse than the other team, like they, especially for it being the Texans, like that was the Bears comparison, right? Like that was the sexy, like they're on the same trajectories, they're only a year behind. And like the Bears looked way more than a year behind the Texans even last year, I thought. And like, yeah, the offensive line played terribly, and like that's on Matt Eberflus, the head coach. The tight ends aren't effective. That's on Matt Eberflus. Like the Bears just looked like they did last year with a 40% better quarterback, which is what they are. And like that, I don't think that's good enough. Obviously, I don't think anyone thinks that's good enough. But after 2 games, like I don't think anyone knows anything, honestly. But as far as they just looked super out coached and out, educated basically in every aspect, whether that was line play, whether that was the secondary, whether that was schematics. Like the Texans just looked way more organized and prepared as a team, I thought. So I think that comes down to Matt Eberflus.
Jack, I've been thinking a lot about you this week. I mean, this dude, is that a romantic gesture? I've been thinking a lot about something that you said, and it's really stuck with me. You were kind of pounding the table a lot for this last year, but I think I was just so angry I didn't want to listen, which is, coaches can only do so much. The players have to execute, they have to play, right? But it's also, and I think we all know this, is that coaches have to put their players in position to succeed. And the Chicago Bears are just not doing that right now. Matt Eberflus is doing some things exceptionally well. The thing that I think that he's doing exceptionally well is making adjustments in game. It would appear that, the Houston Texans are a very good offense. Like nobody, like Slowick is an amazing offensive coordinator. They got weapons all over the place. And so, that part, I don't think anyone's going to argue. It seems that defense did so well at adjusting. I mean, really to let them only have 19 points, and they had to earn those 19 points, right? With Fairbear. I can't every time I know that's not his name, but now I can't unsee it. Someone said that. And so it's a Care Bear, but it's fair. Like that, if that dude isn't kicking 60-yard field goals, who knows what kind of game we're kind of talking about. I think the difficulty and the thing that I'm my long-winded answer here that I'm thinking about is, right, unfortunately or fortunately, however you view it, it does all fall back on Matt Eberflus, right? Whether or not it is his fault or not, right? I think we can have a lot of conversation about that, because his offensive coordinator isn't getting it done. Like defense and special teams, like I tweeted about this yesterday. No one's arguing. That team is ready to play. Yet every single yard just looks offensively, it's so painful to watch. And they judge a head coach simply on wins and losses, right? I think he's doing an incredible job with those other 2 facets of the game in special teams and defense, right? And I don't think he's overly coaching the offense, but he's won way fewer games than he's lost. He's lost a lot of games. And whether or not that's fair to throw that all at the feet of Matt Eberflus, unfortunately, that's how things fall. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I'm just going to challenge you both, because I think here's my premise, and I texted you guys yesterday. I'm going to use last year's late game collapses that, in typical Bears fan fashion, were dumped on the lap of Matt Eberflus. I think that has created a bias against Matt Eberflus in a way that is so Bears fan city of Chicago extreme. There's no I don't think awareness or willing to recognize the fact that there simply wasn't, in the second year of a rebuild, the players on the field to finish games at the end of the game. There just simply wasn't. there wasn't anybody who could point to me where Matt Eberflus specifically, personally, made a bad decision in terms of scheme or in terms of clock management or in terms of anything else that might fall at the feet of the head coach. So it was just, well, the Bears lost in the last minutes of games. Eberflus is an awful coach. That just doesn't track for me. We just played a team, in my opinion, and challenge me on any of this, please do, that I think might play in the last game of the year. There's a chance that team plays in the Super Bowl. And we lost 19-13. I didn't expect we would win that game, but I have seen us time and time again be in games like that against superior opponents. And I think that's pretty impressive. I will put the penalties on him. I don't know why there's been an uptick in that, especially in the first year. They were so clean and disciplined in that regard. And it's disappointing that those penalties have increased, because I do think that comes down to in practice discipline and the ways in which you behavior modify when there are actual penalties in practice. So like that I would give to him. But I think, and I'm not calling you guys lazy, I think it's a lazy thing that Bears fans do. They just want to, again, always jettison the head coach into the sun without taking a look at the larger perspective of this particular situation. That, like, so it's his fault that there's a brand new offensive coordinator. It's his fault that the offensive line isn't what it needs to be yet. It's his fault that Keenan Allen wasn't playing. I mean, the things that he can directly control, he's controlling, and he's controlling them pretty well. Now, I know you're probably going to say something about the challenges, but then does he get credit for the last time out that then allowed New York the time to check that particular challenge? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does he get credit for and what doesn't he get credit for? And why is it usually just fire the coach? That, I guess that's my challenge back to you guys.
I would say kind of is his fault that the offensive coordinator is brand new because he fired the last one. But like, yeah, I guess for me, the Eberflus conversation, and this is probably getting a little off the beaten path of what we're trying to talk about, but like, I guess that like it depends on what you want from a head coach, because I know there are people that think, oh, the head coach is just kind of a seer of game day operations versus a head coach is telling them to do up downs and, you know, motivating them in the halftime locker room speech. But like, you know, I think about the 49ers getting 170 yards out of Jordan Mason. I think about the Packers just changing offenses in 1 week for Malik Willis. Like, that sort of coaching to me, I would never trust the Bears to just like try an entirely different offense because their quarterback's out and have it work well. You know, like when Keenan Allen went down, people were like, oh, shoot, what's going to happen? Instead of like, oh, well, like the system that the Bears offensive coaching has in place, the next guy will just like fill in Keenan Allen's role. Like when something wrong happens in the Bears offense, everything falls apart. And I think that speaks to a head coaching, any sort of coaching philosophy where it is not, maybe the Bears don't value that as much as they value whatever Eberflus brings in terms of team bonding, in terms of good vibes, in terms of defensive prowess, because he is very clearly a good defensive coach. But like, I just don't trust the Bears' decision-making on offense with the players they have on their offensive unit. And I think like Matt Eberflus is not considered a great offensive coach. Shane Waldron was not a A+ candidate in the offseason. Like, these were all kind of meh candidates that have sort of been now expected to be really good. And I think we're just seeing that what like a mediocre offensive coaching staff looks like in the NFL.
It's such a difficult thing, Jack. And I'm trying to give Eberflus his flowers, like legit. I will say this one more time, just so everybody hears me when I say this. His in-game defensive adjustments have been outstanding. The second half of last season through these first 2 weeks, he has been stellar at it. The problem is that the NFL is twofold. I know this is going to sound like I'm oversimplifying things, and maybe I am, right? It's really about, you know, how many points do you score and how many points does the other team score? And they're really good at one of those things, and they're abysmal at the other. And the problem is, regardless if I think all of it is Matt Eberflus's fault, which I don't think it's all Matt Eberflus's fault, right? I am starting to wonder about the Shane Waldron thing a little bit, because I want to be patient with him. I want to, and what's he supposed to do with the offensive line? But the end result is you judge a coach by wins and losses, regardless of how much he builds character, how much enthusiasm is, how much he improves players. Like, he can improve players a lot, like as human beings too. And we can applaud him for that. But in the end, because it's a results business, it doesn't matter. And that part, like, I'm trying to give this guy lots of credit. I will say that the second challenge, I kind of sort of get. That first one, woof, bro, that was like right in front of your eyes. Like, it wasn't like, well, we have a great process, right? And the guys upstairs said that. Like, you are legitimately watching this dude catch the ball right in front of your eyes, and you think, I'm going to challenge it. That was bad. Other than that,
I'm curious. I think you both make excellent points, but like, just going back to what Cam was saying, and I think you use San Francisco as an example and you use Green Bay as an example, and we'll just throw Houston in there because we played them. I mean, isn't part of the point is that they have the ability to do that because of where their organization has been for several years consecutively, and the Bears just haven't been that for decades consecutively. So again, is that on Eberflus, or is that on? In other words, like, I hate the check. We always use the checkers and the chess, but I mean, I do think the Bears are starting to graduate, and when we hope that they're beginning to get, better and more towards some of these perennial great organizations, but we're just not. We aren't there. We're nowhere near there. So we can't do what you were saying, Cam. We can't just like all of a sudden when Keenan Allen. I like what you said. I wish we could do what you talked about. And I guess the other thing, would I take LaFleur in a heartbeat? Yeah. Would I take the guy in Minnesota in a heartbeat? Yeah. Would I take DeMeco Ryan in a heartbeat? Yeah. Like, absolutely I would. I think those guys obviously have shown that they are dynamic coaches who can change organizations pretty quickly. But I also just think that what this head coach conversation ignores a lot of the times is that, as I've talked about quite a bit, is, the challenge of getting to the Super Bowl means that all the planets have to align. Mm-hmm. They all have to align. I mean, it's terrible to mention it, but the Cubs in whatever year they won it, and 2005 when the Sox won it, everything aligned, and we are aligning more of the planets, but we haven't aligned the O-line yet. And we've got a rookie quarterback, and we've got a questionable OC who has no clout like the guy in San Fran or the guy in Minnesota or the guy in I just lost my thought. Green Bay. Thank you. So yeah, I don't know. Like, again, I know that the Captain Flus is like tongue in cheek. It's a little bit of a joke. I honestly, like, is there a point at which I would just say, okay, now clearly, no doubt, that dude is culpable and that dude needs to go. I think if we had, less than 8 wins this year, if we had around 8 wins, there's a threshold there that says, okay, like, yeah, those other problems exist, but what are you doing, Flus, to get us another couple of wins to maybe be a wild card team? And I think maybe I do see and understand the point that he lacks those intangibles or tangibles that might be that type of dynamic coach that does, like, how many wins could we put on Flus at the end of the year? Oh, maybe 1 or 2. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm talking too much, is the other guy that I would just point to, and I don't feel like I just have done it because Tom Waddle has done it. I think we have done it simultaneously, and that is to say, like, going back to the last game, like, we can't, like, Keenan Allen needs to catch the ball on that out route, and we've got another touchdown on the board, right? So I do think there is a high level, like, the way that offensive line is playing, those dudes are professionals. So sometimes I wonder, like, and again, I know it's the head coach that's overseeing everything, but like, at what point do we say those professionals who get high paid contracts need to do their jobs? And I know that's a circular argument, because you could say, whose job is it to make sure that those guys do their jobs? But, I'm not even sure if the talent's in the room with the offensive line. We don't even know if the talent's in the room.
Yeah, I think just lastly, like, this is what it's like when you are a 8 or 9 or 10 win. Like, the margin between 6 and 10 wins is so razor like thin. And like to Jack's point earlier, like this is probably the second or third toughest game on the Bears schedule. It's a hard thing to sort of group a whole season or like a start, I guess, for lack of a better term, when they played one road game and it was probably the hardest road game of the year. Like no one needs to panic right now. Like if you're panicking, you're kind of just like choosing your own. I don't know. It's not just don't do it. Don't do it. I have no good thoughts about it. Just don't do it. I don't know.
Well, yeah, Jack, I think to your point, as we're talking about this, and Cam, kind of to your point too, they had a chance to go and win this game, which at times it felt like they should have had no business being in this game because, again, you have a team that's so good on special teams and so good on defense. And, offensively, they can't run the ball. And I'm just trying to think in my head, when is the last time I saw a Chicago Bears team that couldn't run the ball? And it was this bad at trying to run the ball. This offensive line it's atrocious. It's truly, truly bad. And the question is it simply because they're learning a new system that they're confused? They don't know what's going on. All the guys last night, I know PFF is PFF. Some people scoff at it. Some people think it's legit, whatever. One thing all of our offensive linemen were rated really badly, right? And so Tevin Jenkins was our highest rated, and simply because he could run block, right? But everybody else was Darnell Wright was one of the bottom 10 offensive linemen in the entire league. He had a bad night, and you put all those things together, and you have a quarterback that is just getting used and abused. And while I don't think it was as bad as Justin Fields versus the Cleveland Browns, it was pretty bad 2 weeks in a row, which I think, boys, sets up. We're going to have 2 true or false tonight. This one, I think, set up beautifully. So for all of you that are following along in the comment section, please chime in on this one if you think it is true or false. So true or false? The Chicago Bears should have drafted Joe Alt or some other offensive lineman over Rome Odunze. So for this one, we're going to go Jack, Cam, and I will finish it up.
It's early, without a question, and we don't know what Rome's future looks like. But if I'm just answering in the moment, I'm going to say that it is a true statement that we should have went size and strength over speed and skill. And I think that ultimately, while Ryan Poles placed Darnell Wright, in a position to be drafted at a high level, and that's worked out, I think what we know about the teams like Kansas City or yesterday, even I think Houston, is that the Philadelphia Eagles, the lines are just so talented across the entire 5-man front. And you're not, what we're learning pretty quickly is you're not going to get that with 5th rounders and guys that are cast-offs from Buffalo and, Coleman Shelton, who, obviously has not played overly well in the first two games. I do wonder too, just as a bit of a transition follow-up, I wonder when we look back at the course of this entire year, where these 2 D lines will end up ranking overall, because like I told you, I watched Shelton in the preseason and he wasn't this awful. So I'm just wondering the extent to which we have seen some of the best. I wonder, maybe someone knows, maybe you guys know where PFF has ranked these 2 defensive lines, because I don't think they're going to be this bad all year long. So yeah, anyway, true.
Cam, before you go anywhere, just yes, Jack, I agree that you have 2 good defensive lines, but also you want to be a big boy offense. You gotta stop, I don't know. Sorry, Cam.
And Waldron should adjust. He needs to adjust. Yeah. He needs to figure out ways to get different sets, either with running backs or tight ends and or moving the pocket. And so it's got to be a combination of those things.
Yeah, and Joe Alt has had 1 good game and 1 bad game too. So it's it's not like Joe Alt almost maybe he will be the next great tackle, but it's not like he's had the best start either. I think it's too early to say false. I mean, yeah, I think they should still have Rome Odunze. I think it's too early to move off that pick. Keenan Allen's going to miss games, and I don't think Keenan Allen's going to play more games next year or the year after that. Cole Kmet is what Cole Kmet is. DJ Moore is 27, 28. there's some if Rome Odunze is going to be the guy, which I don't think anyone can say he is or isn't yet, but if he's going to be the guy, then he's going to be the guy that's still here way past any of those guys. And so I don't mind that move. The offensive line was not taken care of this year, but I think it's just a little bit already revisionist history because this offseason it was, Darnell Wright's one of the best rookies. Like Tevin Jenkins, like he could be extended. Like we have pieces already. So like to Jack's point, offensive lines take time. And I know like it was one of the worst offensive line games I've ever seen last night. And so I don't expect them to be, the Eagles by even the end of the year. But I do wonder if this game ends up being a bit of an outlier in terms of how ugly it was, because there's still some interesting guys on the line that could still play well. And I don't think it's time to go like there's going to be so much, February through September, people can do revisionist history, who they, remocks and stuff. Like I'll save that for when I have to do it. It's week 2. I'm not going to go back on it yet.
Man, there's a lot to say there. I'm just going to give my answer, which is I'm going to say false, but I definitely understand the true people. Ryan Poles should have done more in free agency. And I remember saying this, and Brendan, I think Brendan in particular sticks out to me. I could be totally remember this incorrectly, but you have to pay too much money to this guy or too much money to that guy. It's like, that's free agency, man. You always have to overpay in free agency, and you had the ability in which to do it, and his getting pass rushers and defensive linemen through trades and doing get a freaking offensive lineman. Is Kieran Amagaje the answer? Like, is he gonna bump into guard and just be the answer? Man, I hope so, because after talking to his high school football coach, I don't know Kieran. I've never met him before, but I freaking like that kid and I want him to do well, And so because Nate Davis, woof.
That highlight that went around Twitter was brutal, where he just misses like 3 blocks in a row and doesn't touch anyone the whole time. Like you watch that and you're like, oh, which one's the right guard? Oh, that one is. And it's like very obvious who messed up. Like
I don't know his assignments. I don't pretend to know his assignments. I'm not an NFL coach, but holy shit, block somebody, dude.
Yeah.
Just
if you don't touch anyone, like that's not the blocking assignment, is don't touch anyone. Like you don't do that.
Like when they're talking about assignment and alignment, like the first part of the assignment is do your best in space to touch no one. That's not one of the things that is ever said.
What is dude thinking? I wish Heidi Zimmerman, for all of you that are our audio only listeners, Heidi Zimmerman, Nate Davis is consistently bad. He's really, 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 really bad. The problem is they're paying him so much damn money. And so that, like you can't cut him. And I keep hearing people say, well, if he got cut, he'd get picked up somewhere else. I'm almost of the mind of like, okay, have him, dude's been nothing but a headache.
On the IR. So then, like, what are they going to bump Jenkins over and do what at left? I don't know. I mean, it's not good.
So, what do you do here? What would you say we're going to do here? Because, man, I honestly, I don't know. I don't think Kieran Amagaje is going to come in and just solidify this line. Is it simply because you have guys that are learning a brand new offense, a brand new quarterback? I mean, we all knew that there were going to be growing pains, but I didn't think we expected the offensive line to look this abysmal this early on. Am I off on that, boys?
What I will say as a silver lining, NFL offense is like in the worst year in the last 80 years or something. Everyone looks terrible right now. Like, I mean, the Cowboys got blown out by the Saints, like everyone's talking about how like you don't play in the preseason and then all of a sudden September is what August was. Like I don't know how serious to take any trends the first month, especially like really ever, but especially now. I just don't. Everyone is sort of still shaking off the rust, I think.
Yeah, I that makes me feel a little bit better. And again, the game was close-ish, so I don't know. I think I know the answer to this, and I know how the people in the comment section are going to after this. We're going to have our next true false before we go to the outhouse and the penthouse boys, which we still got to get out that way. Talking specifically about this game, I struggled a little bit to think about who's going to be in my penthouse. True or false? I know this is one that has definitely been thrown around social media. The Bears are going to ruin another highly drafted quarterback. Please, again, if you're in the comment section, let us know where you kind of feel about this one. Let's go Cam, Jack, and I will finish it up.
I mean, like on the grand scheme of all time, probably yes. This one specifically, no, I don't know. I don't think so. Like I think if you're already going, I get like the Bears fans are going to do this because they've been hurt before and they'll be hurt again. So like, I don't see the point in getting here already. Like if the Bears are going to be here eventually, then like just wait until they're there, right? Like what? I don't understand why we're rushing to be miserable. So no, I'll say false. I don't think they're going to ruin Caleb Williams.
False. I didn't say that very affirmatively, did I? False. So yeah, I think it is too early. I don't know. I like the kid's moxie. I like the cut of his jib. I think he'd be pretty tough to ruin. He just seems like he has, as I've said before, a calm, a zen, a determination about him that I would just be pretty surprised. I really like what Cam said a couple of weeks back, that I think will probably carry him through whatever types of chaos we see. And Cam had mentioned that it seemed more so specifically with Caleb, that we have a quarterback that has more ability to play quarterback, has more of the skills, the arm strength, the decision-making skills. Think about all the changes he made at the line. And I don't know, because I'm not in the room, the extent to which those changes were warranted and appropriate, but he does seem to have command when there are not, 3 to 4 defensive linemen and linebackers running at his face. He has a lot of command. And so I just think that he because he has those skills that Cam alluded to, and then now we're just hopefully adding, the new offense. And you think about that graphic that you sent me, or that tweet that you sent me, Ryan, right before the show about his completion rate, when he wasn't rushed compared to when he was. I don't know, the long answer, I'll keep it shorter. Sorry, but I don't think he's as flappable, and I certainly hope not. And I just hope he stays healthy, honestly, because yesterday was a great learning experience for him in the big picture, big macroscopic big picture. It is a great learning experience. And that dude learns. I loved that shot of him on the sidelines with Keenan Allen, listening, just really listening and nodding. Thought that was awesome.
I'm going to say false on this one. He improved a lot this week. And I mean, I think that the numbers were there. It was the eye test. Again, that quick release of his is something that I can't remember seeing around in Chicago, but just numbers wise, he was better. And so from next gen stats, Caleb Williams struggled against the Texans blitz, completing only 3 of 12 attempts for 15 yards and an interception, including 5 of his 7 sacks. When not blitzed, Williams completed 20 of 25 passes for 159 yards and an interception. Rookies are going to throw interceptions. That sucked. I want to see him throw a touchdown. But to your point, Keenan Allen catches it and Rome Odunze catches it. Then you're looking at a rookie quarterback that has 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, I do think the one to Rome Odunze was a little high, but dude, if you're a top 10 pick, man, you got to help your quarterback out. If it touches your hands, you got to come down with that. And he's just not getting the help. The question is he going to be physically damaged before that he can find a way to get this done? Man, I don't know. He took a beating, and a large part of that is Shane Waldron. He's got to figure that out. Just it's not good right now. Boys, anything else you want to say about that particular one before there is one other thing I want to get to before the outhouse and the penthouse?
I think it's kind of weird how bad Caleb Williams' deep balls look right now. Like they were not close at all. That was the only thing I would say. His only real, that was not a good throw, were on those deep balls. And it's sort of been a weird, I thought I'm not a draft guy per se, but I thought that was like a major strength. And I get that it's the NFL and these things take time, but like he is noticeably bad on deep passes right now.
I think that's hard to disagree with. I want to say this. I was saving this for later, but who cares? We're going to do it. The Bears' final drive. And so Jack and I were talking before Cam got into a backstage. That final drive where the Bears had a chance to maybe even win the game. It's 3rd down, 12. 13, something along those lines. You guys know what I'm talking about. It was essentially the Bears' last offensive play. When Caleb released that ball that was going to Rome Odunze, it looked so sure. He looked so confident, and the fact that Rome was going to be in that spot, miscommunication. All I'm saying is if Rome turned to be in that spot, that is a first down, and I think that's a play that we are hooting and hollering about this whole day. Cam, I don't think that constitutes as a deep pass. I think it was, it's like 15 yards or something along those lines. Because I agree with you wholeheartedly. He hasn't had any like wow plays thus far, but I think he played exceptionally better this week.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. Sylvie's been harping on more starter reps in the preseason. We've seen now 2 weeks in a row where there seemed to be miscommunication between the route runner and the quarterback, which there is going to be those types of instances without question early on in an offense. It's just a little hard to imagine in that particular situation. And maybe this is about experience too. Like, why would you keep going up the seam? Why would you keep extending that play vertically when ultimately you need to get a yard past the first down marker? And I'm not trying to dig on Rome here, but it just, I think Caleb made the right choice and put the ball in a perfect spot, and his receiver made the wrong choice based on what coverage it was that he saw, or he made the right choice based on the coverage that he saw, but it was still the wrong choice, and a veteran would have broken off and known that if he would have turned to the outside, sidelines, that there would have been a completion and the ball would have been right on target, and we still would have possibly had a shot, given that there wouldn't have been another penalty or another jailbreak on the offensive line.
It's like a 10-second thing. Aziz Al-Asher. Like, how do you get away with punching someone in the face?
I don't know.
And they're just like, oh, yeah, go back out there. Go ahead and play the next day. Like, I mean, I know he's going to get fined and maybe like sit down for a week, but how do you miss him punching a player in the face who wasn't even on the field? Like,
the hit was pretty egregious. The hit was pretty egregious too. Like, there was a bunch of stuff they missed.
Well, I think they said on the broadcast he'll get fined during the course of the week and maybe suspended, but it is a great question. I'm not quite sure why it is that you get to stay on the field when that type of thing happens.
Also, to that point, gosh, the Texans hit hard. Like, there's some games when you're just like, oh my God, like they know how to tackle. Like the Texans, like 4 times. I mean, that hit on Cole Kmet. At first, I was like, oh, he's out of the game. Like he just knocked Cole Kmet's head off, and then you're like, oh no, like that was a legal hit on I think the safety. I forget who it was, but man, like 4 or 5 times, I just said whoa out loud because they know how to tackle. It's wild.
D'Amico Ryans is a damn good coach. He was a good player. He knows what he's doing. All right. So boys, it's time to make our way to that very, very, very special place that we all want to get to at some point. It's time, boys, for
the outhouse and the penthouse. The outhouse and the penthouse.
Sorry about the issue. I just got so excited I hit play again. Attention, Chicagoland investors and business owners. Need a commercial real estate expert? Look no further than Jeff Cadwallader at SVN Landmark Commercial Real Estate in Geneva. With generations of experience, Jeff specializes in office, retail, investment, and land properties. For all of your commercial real estate needs, trust Jeff Cadwallader, Visit jeffcre.com or give him a call or a text at 630-254-4734. If you do talk to Jeff Cadwallader, please let him know that the guys at the Bear Down Chicago podcast say hello. All right, boys. So Bears lose. It's outhouse, then penthouse. let's go same order for both of these. So Jack, Cam, and I will finish it up. Outhouse boys.
You know, I'm going to put the 20-yard marker on the sidelines that took out the official. He tripped over it backwards and I think knocked himself out. And it was a little sad and a little scary. And I know there's a lot of prayers going out for that guy. And he looked like he had really been rocked.
Yeah.
But that pylon, I mean, that was egregious and wrong. And it shouldn't have happened. And so that's my outhouse for the night.
I imagine that he'll be hearing from the league office sometime this week. My outhouse is Tyreek Stevenson because he was terrible. And sometimes corners have terrible games, and I don't think he's necessarily bad going forward, but he was bad on Sunday night. And if I get that he drew a penalty, but you're poking a guy in the eye and then you're getting burned on a touchdown, and then you're giving up 7 receptions on 10 targets and missing 3 tackles. And it was just like the Texans' plan was painfully obvious from the second quarter on. And sorry, Tyreek Stevenson, sometimes you get got.
Yeah, that was really rough. Ryan Poles for thinking that you had some semblance of an offensive line. Dude, you have done so many good things. And I still stand by the fact you've done way more good than you've done bad. But this is just, it's inexcusable for someone that played offensive line. It was listening to, it's 670 the score today. And they're talking about Matt Spiegel is talking a little bit about, how he thinks because both Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles were bad offensive linemen that they can't judge offensive linemen. My friend Rob Kirkland has made a somewhat similar argument. I mean, I don't even know if it's that, but all I'm saying is they have done a poor job in accumulating offensive line talent. You've got all the other pieces around it, but you're going to get your quarterback hurt because you can't protect him. And you are absolutely culpable for that. And that sucks. It really sucks. That offensive line performance last night was one for the ages. I would say it's the worst I've ever seen, but I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so I've seen lots of those.
Is there, besides, mine was kind of just a joke. I mean, I figured the offensive line would be in there.
Was it?
Well, ish. And then obviously, people, we already kind of covered the Matt Eberflus, topic. Was there another outstandingly poor play? I mean, I thought maybe the punter, if you're going to put a 4th round pick on that punter, then let's go ahead and pin him inside the 10. I think it was 2 opportunities he missed to do that. And I guess I would just, if you're going to draft a punter that high, expect really great things from him.
Yes.
I was
finally some accountability for this punter that everyone says is going to change the Bears' lives. And it was such a good pick and so trendy. Good. Finally. I'm with you, Jack.
He flipped the field 3 or 4 times, completely flipped the field. At one point, I think he kicked from the 10-yard line, and then the Texans are starting at their own 20 or something absurd like that. All right. I mean, just every time I watched, I was like, ooh, yes, no coffin corners inside the 10, but damn, that kid's got a leg. He's got a leg. Okay.
He does.
All right.
I just want to see the entire Swiss Army whole routine. I heard about all the ways that he can put juice on that ball and make it, fall this way and that way and sideways and down and flat and so forth. And you're right, Ryan, you're not wrong. And I'm obviously, I think he's going to be great. He's going to be just fine. But we Trenton Gill could do what he did yesterday in terms of those coffin corner level kicks.
Yeah, we expect greatness. Let's see it. It's about time.
Cam is here just to steer it up. That's it. That's the only
I do actually earnestly believe some of what I'm saying though. It was nice to get that off my chest a little bit.
This is a really good question, Matt. The counterpoint is, do you need a generational punter when your defense is potentially top 5? I would say the Bears do, because they need a special teams to get them in position where their defense might score, because their offense is just such hot garbage right now. Wait a minute. I've said that before. So many times. Let's say some good things about the game last night. Let's go to the penthouse. Jack, Cam, and I will finish it up.
Okay, so I for a moment I wanted to put an opposing player in the penthouse. I'm just going to mention him because holy crap, is Nico Collins good? And I wanted to ask you guys too. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. Like, as beefed up as our wide receiver room is Nico Collins better than any wide receiver on our roster? I think he is. Like,
he's so
that
good.
guy is incredible. Like, he's going to be, I think, probably amongst the top 5 wide receivers by the end of the year, unless maybe he just had a really great game and I don't have a better sense of like the big picture. But man, his route running was fantastic. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, he's sure-handed. Dude's good. But I thought I really love the way Kyler Gordon plays. I mean, the guy, I think he had he had 4 solos and 6 total tackles. I think he had a pass deflection. And that play that he made in the backfield on that jet sweep was like fantastic. And I don't know, it probably was illegal, but I love the after punches too. Like, I like these defenders that have, you used to always say that kid's got a streak of Sandlot in him, and that kid's got a streak of Sandlot in him. He'll thump and he'll fly. And I just really like the way that Kyler Gordon plays defense. Big fan.
This is going to sound like a kind of a joke, but it's only like half a joke. My penthouse is going to Cole Kmet because Cole Kmet is proving that he is invincible, because he's like, no one else on the Bears is having as bad of a start without having any sort of criticism whatsoever, right? Like, Cole Kmet's having a terrible start to the year and no one is blaming Cole Kmet. Like, that is a power that barely any NFL players get. And Cole Kmet is so safe with his job in Chicago that he can just be bad and he doesn't get criticized. So Cole Kmet, you got a good gig going. Shout out to you.
It's the pipes. I mean, those arms they're incredible.
He does look good. I will say, like, in terms of like how he looks this year, he does look a little faster and a little slimmer and a little leaner. So shout out to Cole Kmet. But also, like, what are we doing here, guys?
He's a good looking man. I just kept hearing how Shane Waldron uses the 2 tight end sets. He's making both of those guys that had good years last year look bad, right? Gerald Everett, he looks terrible, and Cole Kmet looks really bad. Both of them had good seasons last season. Mm-hmm. So too early to tell, but Shane Waldron, 2 bad games. If he has like 3 or 4 more, he might be just terrible. It's entirely possible. I mean, I know the criticism when he was on his way over from Seattle was, dude can't figure out a way to run the football. Is it just the offensive line or is it scheme? I don't know. I'm supposed to be saying good things, and so I want to say a good thing. Cairo Santos. Now, I know he doesn't have the leg that some of these other guys have been, but he's just been so damn good. And that says a lot, right? When we're talking about a kicker in my penthouse, but 2 for 2 with a 54-yard field goal. If he doesn't have those, the Bears are sitting at a much different place. I think he's just been so consistent. And I think one of the fun things that I really like about Cairo is watch where the ball is kicked. It's almost always right down the center. Now, he hits the camera, right? But dude, legitimately right down the center. He gives it an opportunity. Yes, he doesn't have a super strong leg, but I just love that he has solidified that kicker position. Honorable mention, boys, Tremaine Edmonds, another good game. Kevin Byard, good game. Anybody else that I missed that had a good game?
No,
I think you covered it. Yeah, I think you covered it.
Yeah. So, okay, boys, this has been a fun one. Is there anything at all that we missed before we get to shout outs and we get out of here? Anything at all, boys?
No, I don't think. Like, just please don't be worried. If you're a Bears fan listening right now, like, just if you could take one thing away from this, it's just you don't need to be sad yet. Like, winter's around the corner. You can be sad then. Just don't be sad now, please. It's better, I promise.
It's good advice.
I think mine is germane to that as well, because I was just kind of thinking to myself as I was thinking about, like, the knee-jerk reaction and the, overreaction Monday kind of results that we're going to see all the time from the Bears fans. On the one hand, I saw quite a few people, say something like, I've watched the same Bears game for 10 years now. And I thought, whoa, like, there's a little bit too much truth to that. But then maybe it goes back too much to the earlier conversation. So let me know if it does. But what's going to make y'all happy? Like, what's the threshold? We're 1-1 and just lost to, as Cam, pointed out, like to maybe one of the top 3 opponents all year long. Like, where is it going to be where we're not like still bitching about the offensive line and bitching about the play calling and bitching about the head coach? Is it 12 wins? Are Bears fans going to be happy at 12 wins? Is it penalties? Is it a penalty-free game that makes the difference? Is it like a proper calling of an adult level offense that is the trigger for Bears fans? And then they'll go, yeah, I'm a little more satiated now. I'm good with that. But I just, it never does us any good. I don't think probably right to go with the ebbs and flow of Twitter and the super, far reactions on either side. But I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, people that were so mad about this loss, what would have made you happy yesterday? Obviously a win, but a loss to a fantastic team in a game we were almost in the entire time. Like, I know it's like, what is it? Moral victory, whatever. And that still sucks, but I don't know. I just like this, like knee-jerk dissatisfaction. I'm just a little weary of it. And maybe it's on me. Maybe like I'm the one who's carrying water, as Shells always says, for Flus or for the Bears. And it needed to have happened last season, or it needed to happen out of the gate this season. But did we expect the Bears to be San Fran? And did we expect the Bears to be the Ravens? And do we expect the Bears to be Houston coming out of the gate this year? I don't think so. Like, I don't know if there's a question in there. It's just kind of maybe just a rant. But
the Ravens, who by the way haven't won a game yet and lost to what people thought was the worst team in the NFL at home on Sunday. So
great point.
There's time.
Right.
Jack, to answer what I think was your question in there, what would have made me happy is an offense that didn't look so painful, that just didn't look so terrible. Yeah, they were going to lose because the Texans are a better football team, but just to watch a functioning offense. You know what? Caleb's going to throw interceptions. It's going to happen. We understand that, but just to see them move the ball with a little more efficiency, I don't think I'm bitching very much to say, okay, cool.
Okay. So then we're not going to get Flus's challenges are trash, and we're not going to get,
it was bad.
Oh, you so well. There's
no. I wasn't going to complain at all. I'm going to complain a lot less.
You're going to be like, oh, we had 300 yards and we had 2 touchdowns and no interceptions and we had like an amazing game. And I'm out. I'm done. Euphoria. Bears euphoria.
You're in the wrong sport for that, man. Like, let me tell you, I don't think that's ever coming. So I think that may be on you. You're right.
Let's talk about the Bears' upcoming schedule, because I think Bears fans do need a little love here right now. Gonna go to Indianapolis. The Colts look stinky. They look bad. Bad. Then wait a minute. They're gonna play the Los Angeles Rams, who look stinky, really bad. Then I can't believe we didn't talk about this because this is a Bears podcast. Carolina Panthers benched Bryce Young already.
Dalton's return game.
Oh boy, they are god awful. Wait a minute. Then they're going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are also 0-2. That team, I think, can still turn things around a little bit. Then they're playing Washington, who's 1-1, Arizona 1-1, and New England 1-1. That's just down that stretch. They got a lot of winnable football games coming up here, boys. It's absolutely possible. Cam, we got to figure out that you and JJ, the return, right, of your old Bears podcast. How excited are you?
I'm very excited. He was literally just texting me today. I think he's on the last episode of Under Center. I don't want to blow any surprises if that's a surprise. I don't know why I would be, but I think it's just like a Colts preview or whatever. But we were talking about it earlier, and I was like, yeah, man, like it feels like a big week for Under Center out of nowhere. So I'm very excited. He's my guy.
Oh, big fan of JJ.
I hope I didn't just like ruin like some digital team surprise or anything. But no, I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure there's not enough people watching our show to have it ruined, so it'll be okay. Boys, so let's see here. Jack, you said that the Bears are going to get a dub. You sticking with that against the Colts?
I am. I mean, I do think there's obviously a lot of volatility early in the year, and Richardson is Richardson without question. I'll be honest. I guess I didn't watch much of that game, so I don't know where their distinct weaknesses and strengths are. But I just felt like they were a beatable team. And they still have a young quarterback who's trying to figure things out. I think, again, I think the offensive line is going to continue to improve, believe it or not, and we're going to have to stick with the guys that are in the room. Sadly, I don't think there's any help coming from anywhere else. And so hopefully we'll improve with like time and scheme and more seat time. And then simultaneously Caleb's going to improve, and the defense is going to, as long as it stays healthy, continue to be pretty damn dominant. And I think that brings us quite a few wins in that little series of games you just reeled off. I hope so.
Cam, you also picked a Bears win against the Colts. You sticking with that?
Yeah, they have real problems on the defensive line, I think. And like if the Bears can run the ball even remotely better, that's going to be great because the Colts cannot defend the run whatsoever. At least they haven't so far.
That's news I've heard all day, Cam.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And Caleb Williams drops back 42 times. But I still think the Bears are going to win.
I'm also picking a Bears win, and I think it's gonna. There are some negatives that have happened these first couple of weeks, but I'm hoping that it makes Bears fans a little bit happy. Hopefully, it's not like the Tennessee win where you escape somehow. Hope this is not even necessarily convincing, but just that the Bears play better and with more confidence throughout. I think that's going to happen. Boys, it's been a fun episode. Very, very thankful for you guys for being here. All of you, our listeners that are hanging out. Boys, it's time to get to shout outs. Shout outs for this week. So for shout outs, let's go Cam, Jack, and I will finish it up. Shout outs, boys.
So my shout out is to the Salt Shed in Chicago. I was there last week for a couple concerts, and it is just like the most incredible concert venue I've ever been to. It blew me away, and I was just so I was like, this is exactly what this space should be. And I had a great time, and I was just so impressed with everything about the venue, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing. So shout out to Salt Shed. You guys know what you're doing.
Well, that happens to be incredibly serendipitous, Cam, because I'm going to see Vance Joy tomorrow night at the Salt Shed.
Is it the first time you've been?
What's that? Yeah, it'll be my first time.
Oh, dude, it's awesome. I'm so excited for you. You're going to love it.
I've heard it's fantastic. So is the Morton Salt Shed factory that they've converted?
Yeah, they converted it into an indoor and outdoor concert facility. And it's just like, you'll see, it's just like so nice. And it's such a great place. I loved it.
Excellent. Well, I'm extra excited now. I'd like to shout out Rusty. He is Rusty J54 on Twitter. There's a few people, you probably guys have the same thing, that seemingly you're having an ongoing conversation with them all the time on Twitter. They seem to have this sense where they're responding to what you tweet, even if, only 5 other people are engaged in that particular tweet. And, I love those guys. So love Rusty. I also just noticed he's just kind of down the street from me. So let's grab a beer sometime, Rusty. So shout out to Rusty J54.
I haven't been to the Salt Shed, but I think they made like an impromptu concert there a couple years ago while it was still up and running. Maybe I'm misremembering, or maybe it just was too much liquid in my system, to remember exactly how it is. But man, it's been a while since I've been to a show, and I know, man, you love Vance Joy. Like, have fun, Jack.
Thanks.
Way too many late nights for me. I can't.
It's my birthday week. That's what I've just went. I've got.
Wait a minute.
I've got 3 concerts in 2 weeks. I'm just going all out.
Is Friday like a big deal for you or something? Like,
it's my birthday.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then it's a big number for Chicago Bears fans. Would it be 5-1?
I think your microphone just went out, and I think you might be having, and your camera froze. So I don't know what you said.
Technology. Oh, it's the worst. You think they'd have this figured out by now.
You said 38, right? Did you say 38?
Comments section. Here we go. Doesn't this man look fan freaking tastic for his age.
Yeah.
Sorry. It is
a sprightly 34.
People are going to be like, do you legit, is Dangle, is he hitting on Jack for the whole night? Or
I hope
what's
so.
going on? I've got two, and one of these is long overdue. So this is a guy who won our one and only jersey giveaway contest. It's Bert W. You're amazing. And Jack, you're right. Just there's so many times every time we have something going out. Also, huge win for my Port Adelaide Power, the Power. They beat, sorry, Ozzy. They beat Ozzy's Hawthorne Hawks. It was a hotly contested game. And Bert was shooting me some DMs at 5:00 in the morning, because that's when they play. And I was like, oh man, Bert, this is awesome. So Bert, thank you so much for celebrating with me as the Port Adelaide Power won. Watching the game. That was awesome. And for always supporting us at the Bear Down Chicago podcast. Appreciate you. And Furious George, I know he does his own Bears content stuff. That dude is freaking hysterical. He does such a good job. And every once in a while, I'll see one of his tweets and actually laugh out loud. And so I absolutely love it. Boys, thank you for hanging out with me. I had a lot of fun tonight. For all of you in the comment section, man, that means a lot. We appreciate all of you. There's so many of you saying some really cool stuff and throwing in the conversation, which makes it really fun for us. We know that you can get your Bears content anywhere, but you've chosen to hang out with the Bear Down Chicago podcast. It does not get lost on us. If you like what you hear, hit us with a 5-star review. Tell a friend, whatever you can, like, subscribe to all those things. We need more YouTube followers, all that sort of stuff. Please spread the word for the Bear Down Chicago podcast. For all of us at the show, that's Patrick Sheldon, Brendan Shagrew, Logan Bradley, Jack Wright, Cam Ellis. I'm Ryan Dangle. Man, you guys you're kind of freaking awesome. For all of us here at the Bear Down Chicago podcast, thank you so much. And as always, Bear Down Chicago.